you remember the Rings of Power superfans?
If, like, Sauron is hot, I feel like people will be like, I can fix him.
Maybe she was born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. I mean, come on, dude! It kicked off Rings of Power's marketing launch, and it was some of the most disastrous content they'd ever released. And that includes the series.
Every time I was like, okay, take a breath, something new would happen, and it was
I remember putting out my phone and I was like, yeah, it's Radio Lord of the Rings. It's about to get lit like Mordor. I know you guys are selfie holics. What was the best picture you took of the night?
And sure, now it's at 102,000 views over the course of the year. But if you notice, it is an unlisted video. This video was such a disaster that Amazon had to take it down because it was negatively impacting the Rings of Power brand, even more than the show.
My colour.
Presentation. Someone that looks just like me.
There are not many women in it. Women who are in it never speak to one another. Female representation.
I wasn't represented, my disability or my queerness.
But it's better than that, because I covered this all the way back when it had 8,000 views originally, and even then, as you can see, it was still unlisted. 102,000 views is impressive on a video, but it's even more impressive when it's physically impossible to find it when they've taken the link down since before 8,000 views. But the strangest part was, Rings of Power's marketing didn't change. They just kept going along with the same message. In fact, if you go back and rewatch that Superfans video now, it comes along with an entirely different light, because they were remarkably accurate for people that had never seen the show.
Do you think we're going to see another side of Sauron?
You don't know what I did before I ended up on that raft. You're asking me to go to the one place that I swore never to return.
Your sorrow cannot ease my pain. I know what a hammer and tongs is yours.
Yes.
Like maybe he falls in love.
I told you the truth. I told you that I had done evil and you did not care. All others look on you with doubt. I alone can see your greatness.
Maybe there's a reason. Every villain's a hero in his own story,
I think
right?
we're going to find out more.
Together, we can save this Middle Earth.
Save or rule.
I see no difference.
we all love a bad boy, don't we?
They brought up points that nobody would have possibly have thought of at the time, unless you knew that you were supposed to be thinking about them.
I just want to see Galadriel through the story of getting that dagger.
I mean, I want her dagger. It looks
very cool.
stunning and beautiful, and I want it.
And there are talking points in that video which are almost word for word what Rings of Power cast and crew members have used in interviews since.
Tolkien's work was always about being inclusive. The Fellowship, like a bunch of people from different backgrounds coming together in order to face a common enemy, being Sauron.
Tolkien is for everyone. His stories about fictional races doing their best work when they leave the isolation of their own cultures and come together. Even from the more recent Magic the Gathering's Lord of the Rings content, the Lord of the Rings is about different peoples of Middle-earth coming together to fight Sauron.
People from different backgrounds coming together in order to face a common enemy, being Sauron.
Finding strength in their diversity. This is a really unusual talking point to keep being brought up, because what you're actually saying in your comment has nothing to do with what you're trying to defend. An elf and a dwarf joining up for a quest has no relation to making Aragorn not Aragorn, or having an elf that breaks the laws of the universe to even exist. So having three people be wrong in the same unique way is either a remarkable coincidence, or you're just all NPCs.
We're seeing our first black elf, we're seeing the first female dwarf.
First ever female dwarf to ever truly be seen.
I mean, the first elf of color and all these things, and the big representation aspect of it all. Thank you.
There are some funny parts in that interview. Like, I'm pretty sure the guy leading it forgot two people's names midway through.
For the people on the end.
And the director doesn't stop handling his mic for the entire 40 minutes that this is going. He's like twisting it, patting it, rubbing the microphone.
The material. And we've all head up.
Congratulations, mate. You single-handedly destroyed the audio of the entire interview. Although, compared to their other marketing, this must have seemed like the height of luxury.
The photo shoots that are actually in a car park for us, isn't it?
And there are some interview questions which start with, where on earth is this going?
Which is a scene that you figured this is nothing and it took you all day.
The dinner scene.
And how you can work with directors who are just trying to be helpful by giving you advice on what to do in the scene.
That I thought was going to be quite simple until you put food in front of me. I saw J.R.R. to say, Sophia, there's food in front of you, you got to eat it.
And very, very quickly regretting that advice.
Eating. Jay comes in, Sophia, you're eating too much. Please stop eating.
And there are multiple times where people contradict each other when we realize that guy probably made a mistake by being far too honest.
The truth is that because it was Second Age, there was no any example to follow. We had to create a world from scratch.
All the cultures and races, environments and the natural elements of the world, and that was all coming from Tolkien.
And maybe it's just me, but if you don't have anything about the Second Age, so you've got to create it from scratch, why are you making stories in it in the first place? Yeah, we're going to buy Tolkien's IP just so we don't use anything of Tolkien in it. How very modern.
And having Tolkien come through life, but also make it a 2020, 2022, 2023 for new audiences.
You know, Nibelung, all of that world, it was all sitting there. It wasn't like we were imposing a modern take on that.
Rings of Power and Amazon saw how disastrous this interview was. They knew it was bad because they'd taken it down at 8,000 views and then watched it go viral anyway, just because it was a car crash. But even knowing that those talking points were a disaster, they decided to double down anyway. They could have warned the cast that this is terrible PR and you shouldn't do it, but they didn't. In fact, even now we're going into season 2, we're still coming out with the same old talking points, talking about how she was attacked. They're even saying herself that some of them called her a wonderful actress and a really lovely person. They just didn't think she should be part of this, it's not right, attacked. Going on to say that she was just going to do it because she couldn't afford to resign, which, to be honest, is fair enough. If you're offered the part, I don't really expect people to turn down work. At that point, I think it comes down to how you act with regards to the character and how you start talking in interviews. For instance, saying that you taking the role is an act of defiance. There really is a difference from I'm doing this to put food on my table and I'm doing this to piss you off. And I realize that my place in the show is not just a celebration. It's an act of defiance against a reality that is simply not true, that we have no place on the screens or in fantasy spaces, which nobody has said. There's a remarkable ability for everyone else to be talking about an idea or a concept, such as the law. This is the canon, this is the universe, and these are the rules of the universe, and you go, yeah, but what about me? It's the complete inability to grasp an idea on its own, because you're only able to see the world through your eyes. If you're not in that world, you can't physically comprehend it, which inevitably means that you have to be involved in all of it. So things turn into an act of defiance against reality because of course I can be in fantasy. So yeah, of course you can. Nobody is going to stop you being an actress. But there are rules of the universe that prevent you from being a dwarf, mainly because they live underground. And I don't know why this has to be explained, but apparently it does. Underground, not generally known for its high quantities of sunlight. No, instead, there was a contrast between how the fans spoke about Lord of the Rings and how the Rings of Power crew spoke about itself. And I mean that literally, with the fans talking about the books and what was written in it, and the crew talking about themselves.
Everyone who's going to be watching the Q&A, which we're filming, is a fan.
I wouldn't be quite so sure about that one, mate. Especially when you had to ask this question earlier.
Did everybody watch the entire show? On the spot.
37% of people got to the end of the series. I can understand why you had to check.
For fans, what do you think would surprise people to learn?
Personal sacrifice that came for us to be working on the show. It's difficult to convey because we were all away from home.
But I realized that for her and for the future of our industry and the generation.
It's going to be inspiring, right, for the next generation.
We're beyond me anymore. No, this is about what I can bring to the entire entertainment industry and what I can bring to the entire generation of Earth.
What are your thoughts on the casting decisions?
It's going to mean so much to like me personally because it's getting that representation in Middle-earth. Young kids are going to see that on screen.
It's going to be inspiring, right, for the next generation.
You do not understand the power that I have, the influence that I am spreading. I am saving people. One of the great things about projecting your virtue into the world is it does do wonders for the ego. Don't you understand? I'm becoming part of history by changing the world. That's why we get things like, it's a must that I stand in my power. I don't know whether she's still in character because she's actually beginning to sound like Deezer. There was a scene in one of the episodes where Deezer began to sound like a Sith Lord. For literally decades, this has been the universal sign of the villain, a thirst for power. And yet now we just talk about it openly, apparently. But I think that shows how it could become that you hate your own audience. They keep causing trouble for you. They keep pointing to the books about where you're wrong. And they keep confronting you with facts about why you can't be here. But don't you understand? You just want to help people. They just don't see how powerful you are, about how you can change the future of the industry and help generations of people. If you're so self-absorbed that you think your bank balance increasing is the good moral thing for the universe, and that you existing in the world is the moral force that will lead the peasants into a better future, then you can understand why disagreeing with you becomes patently evil. Because that is what Rings of Power called the fans. Patently evil. They asked about the fans, what are they protecting? I don't see how people saying these things could think they're fighting for good. How could anyone protecting the source material think they're fighting for good? Don't they understand we're changing the future of the industry and an entire generation? Obviously, if you stand in the way of us helping an entire generation of people, you could only be evil. This is why some people don't see the legitimacy of canon, don't understand why people would protect it, because it involves thinking about something which isn't you. You have to be able to respect and value something external to yourself, an idea or a concept of what this universe is on its own. But if you're so egotistical and self-absorbed that you can only comprehend yourself, that simply existing in something is a moral good, because why wouldn't it be? You're your entire universe. You're never going to be able to appreciate something external to yourself, because it could never be good unless you were in it, unless you saw yourself represented within it.
You feel respected, seen, grounded. There is that belief in you and in all your story and all your history, and that's how I felt in that audition.
Now, I'm not sure why she says this next bit, because it's directly contradicted in another interview. She said that she marched to the showrunners and begged them to make this moment matter. Don't make her subservient or just a wife. So soon to be divorced then, got it. But no, I begged them to make her quite a bedroom titan. Interesting what you could go and ask someone for, isn't it? You could go and, can I be really intelligent? Can I be really witty or funny? No. I want to dominate people with my body. I mean, everybody needs a hobby, I guess. But the interesting thing about that is it does contradict another interview, because she said she was the one that marched to the showrunners and asked them to make her this. And that's not what she said here.
There was a draft of Disa. Everything was very covered and it was gorgeous and it was wonderful.
It was gorgeous. It was wonderful. But for some reason, it changed.
And then they said,
I kind of caught yourself there, didn't you? And then no, they did. They did it.
Kate was like, okay, we're abandoning that. What happens if we make Disa really sexy?
They'd worked on this design for months and then just threw it out randomly for apparently no reason. Well, there was a reason, actually.
Why are we hiding her? We have so much stone. Why can we not make her water?
I have literally no idea what that means. There's so much stone. What we need is water, and that's why we're just going to use you. You know what I think when I think of water? Your legs. What is happening? How do you even make that comparison on a professional set? I have no idea.
For me, not being a smaller woman, as we've seen in these kind of iconic roles before, thus Disa was born with like a massive slit up her leg.
But she seemed very enthusiastic about it, like she liked it. Don't know why we're giving different interviews to different people about who was responsible for the change. Because if you're so pleased with it, if you're so proud of it, why are we saying that you asked for it in one place, but in the other, that it was purely the wardrobes department and you just went along with it? So which one is it? Did you go to the showrunners and ask them, or did the wardrobe person come to you and go, I think you should do this? Or did you go to the showrunners, they went to the wardrobe person who came to you and suggested it, and you just pretended it wasn't your idea in the first place? I would love to know. Oh, that's lovely, darling. It's so amazing that you think I should show off a bit of leg. I'd never thought of that. But no, apparently she went through the 7 stages of grief by reading some of the comments, and she understood that her job was to help people. Embrace them. Because these commenters are basically children, and they're scared. They're scared. They're frightened because they haven't seen us before. I'm sorry, but I've got to be honest, I have no idea what you're talking about. Unless someone lives in Antarctica without a television signal, I don't know what you're talking about or who you're talking to. Is it because all these talks of I'm the first has actually gone to your head and you genuinely think you are the first person on television? But I do think it's an interesting inability to understand. No, they're scared. They're scared. They're scared of me. They just can't comprehend me. Because if they could comprehend how amazing I am and the things that I bring to this because it's all about me, then they would want me in it. If they don't want me in it, it's just because they don't understand something. It's still the inability to understand an idea external to herself. That this is about canon, what the book says, and the laws of the universe. That if they created a part for you within the rules of the universe, no one would have a problem with it at all. All you need is an island where it works, and it never would have even been commented on. So then you have the question back of, if that happened, would you still want the part? Or is it the idea that you can change canon and alter history that gives you that little thrill? That makes you feel like you're changing the future of your industry and the generations. Because if we change their history, the foundations upon which their culture is built will change their future. Is it possible for someone who can only think of themselves to even comprehend history? I mean, I don't think Jada Pinkett Smith could. I think we proved that with Cleopatra. But Sophia came to a realization in that moment and throughout the show have made it my mission to ease their fear. Nobody's scared and nobody's afraid. Well, they may be of watching it. There were quite a few people that when the next episode of Rings of Power was coming around, did have a very strong feeling of dread. So scared of the show? Possibly. Or at least the mental toll that it would take. But to let them understand and help educate them. This is where we've been going wrong our entire lives. We set up education systems with teachers in. Admittedly, may have been a mistake. But who knew that the real people we should have been going to for wisdom all this time were the intellectual behemoths that are actors? I mean, these are people who lie on camera professionally and literally get handed what to say. They're gonna do wonders educating me as soon as somebody else has told them what to say. But no, educate them that it's okay, that we can tell a story. Nobody said you couldn't tell a story. You obviously told a story, we watched it. People are just debating whether it's a good story is all.
These wonderful people would turn up and sometimes there wasn't, always a script.
It's the merit of that story that people are generally debating. But no, that we can be here. I'm not sure if she's plural at this moment. That should be an I. We're getting into me, myself, and Irene territories at this point. Obviously, if I'm the only person that exists in the universe, everything will be better if I'm part of it. Just my sheer existence will improve anything in the world. Look, I have been called egotistical multiple times throughout my life. I have never, ever considered something like that. Hey dude, nice space rocket you got over there. Would have been better if I'd helped design it though. If I talk about myself in the plural, will you give me a job? Oh, it gets worse. I hadn't even read on that our industry and the world will be better for it. Don't you understand that if I lie on camera in this piece, the world will be improved. My morality will spread out through the camera lens and improve everything that my light touches. This is why it's important to understand concepts and ideas external to yourself, because if there's something bigger than you, it introduces the element of being humble. Whereas if you can only see the world through the lens of you and have to imagine yourself in everything, see you represented in something to even comprehend it, of course you're going to think everything's better with you in it, because it was missing something vital when you weren't. And they just assume that everyone else sees the world the same way. So of course somebody else needs to see themselves represented, because that's how you think of things, and because you can only comprehend your point of view, you think everybody else thinks the same way. That's why she's so obsessed with what she is. I can be the poster child and fly the flag, be a mother, a woman. Being black and a curvaceous woman deemed as a thing of beauty is something that we don't always see. So that Deezer is all those things personified in a face, and it happens to be my face. What coincidental, I'm the one where my bank balance is increasing, while I represent all of these things for everybody else. Don't you understand? I'm doing it for them. My bank balance increasing is simply a coincidental side effect. And so, if the world is you, well, you're a mother, you're a woman, you're curvaceous. And you like to see that on a screen because that means that you can put yourself into a world and now you can suddenly comprehend it because you're in it. So you assume everybody else has to be the same. It's literally a group of people trying to project their inability to understand abstract concepts as a moral virtue. And that, yes, if you act as if you can't understand it as well, you'll be a good person too. That's why this entire debate is stupid, because you've got people who are doing an action and then being surprised when people get angry at them doing the action and acting as if the response is the problem. It doesn't matter if you can't understand why they want something protected. And it doesn't mean that somebody is scared just because they want their history preserved. A piece of work that people care about is at its best when it maintains its integrity. You can't take someone's pet, replace it with a different animal, and then expect that person to care about it in the same way. But that's what you're asking for. That's what you're surprised that people are even bothered to comment about. Look, you had a dog, but I replaced it with a squirrel. Surely you like that more? Squirrels are awesome. It doesn't mean that someone has a problem with squirrels. They're not afraid of squirrels. It's just that they love their dog. They cared about their dog, and they didn't want it changed. As a perfectly reasonable, perfectly respectable attitude to have. It's not a problem. It's not something that needs to be educated out of them. They don't need to be fixed. And if we were going to change anything, I guarantee you, the moral arbiters would not come from Hollywood or any entertainment industry in the UK. I can promise you that one. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.